For those who are not too familiar with your accomplishments, I mean, you've done it all, right? You are a human rights lawyer, you're currently at Harvard, and a lot of people might be wondering about how you got to where you've gotten to, especially considering your background, which maybe many people outside of India might not be too familiar with. I'm talking about the caste system in general. For those who might not be too familiar with the caste system, what exactly is Dalit? Because you are from that caste, right?
So Dalit is a term that we need to understand within the caste system, the divisions that exists. The top are the Brahmins, who are priests, and then we go down in a descending order. Then there are minority, but though priestly, the kingly, the monarchical groups, the warriors so-called. Then we have the merchants, and then we have peasants spread across majority of the population. In India, at least, there are about 600 to 700 million peasants population, which is considered, by the way, low caste. And off top of that, there is a fifth category, which is considered outcast, which doesn't belong to the human, so to say, ephemeral status, which are considered untouchables. Untouchables are now in population close to 280 to 300 million. And these are the groups that were considered impure. Their very sight, their very presence, their very shadow was considered so impure that you had to really take a ritual bath with a cow dung. So, pardon my French, but the shit of an animal was considered a more purifying factor than a human being's shadow, not even a physical touch. So Dalit, in this case, is a group that has been battered and has been oppressed for the past 3.5 millennia. And this kind of tradition is continuing. The delegation of caste system has changed, but the status of untouchables and their miseries, which is tied to the social osmosis of India's caste system and broader, is very much to the pittance of the dominant caste, the dominant groups who want to control their labor, their women, the child exploited, and it's basically comes down, as we go to the original point, of controlling the resources and then manipulating them, so you don't have a challenge. So caste system is an inflexible system, and the people who are born in the lowest caste have to live their life with the fate of dying into the doomsdom of where you were born and where you will die is not in your hands. But the caste system has made it that your birth itself is become a sin. And by that fact, you live a life of sin and you try to purify, just trying to impress the people who considered you impure. And this is where we are today, with a massive amount of population that is trying to overcome the standards of untouchability and other forms of discriminations.
We want to get this right, but at least from our research, the caste system was officially abolished in 1950s or something like that. How accurate would you say that is? In other words, is it part of like an official legal system right now, or are we talking about the vestige of whatever remains of that initial system?
That's an interesting question, Stephen. People don't really know that caste system was not abolished. Untouchability was abolished, but the caste system is very much intact because it's a system. I mean, if you remove caste system, India will not be India, or rather South Asia won't be South Asia, because the foundational structure of this whole edifice of a nation state is built upon that. So if you remove the caste angle, what do you have? You really have no skeleton. It's just a mass of body. And then what we see is this diluted beings will really create an order of a certain nature, where you will really have to reimagine people who are accustomed to caste to now come and ask them to rethink about their collective futures without this caste system. So caste system is very much intact. It is not abolished, but there are provisions in the constitution which highly discourages for one to not exercise caste, and there are various political as well as economic advantages given to the people so that they can rise up to the level. And this is basically what we call political economy of nation state. So they get the resources. Although untouchability is abolished, 50% of India, urban and rural India, in a survey, accepted to practicing untouchability. They accepted that they would like to treat a person lower than the dignity of an animal. They accepted that if they will rape a woman belonging to the lowest caste, they will not have a consequences because that's what the woman's destiny is meant to be. And they have really affirmed their faith that they are superior beings than the people who are born into a womb that was already sinned as untouchable. And even though we have constitutional provisions, we really live in a state that is ruled by the traditional power brokers. Tradition is strong, culture is strong, and in that we create a very kind of blend of religious doctrine. So what we call at one point as the great Marxist Jewish intellectual from Britain, Eric Hobsbawm said, he said, invention of tradition. Traditions have been invented. It was never a thing of tradition. People created by on the go. However, culture was always existing. When culture and tradition marry, we create a deficiency of a real spiritual order, thereby creating religion as a manifesto of how to rule. That's what happens very effectively with the concept of India's caste system. Religion then becomes the purveyor of carrying certain cultures, certain traditions, made for us to feel that it is something sanctified by the Almighty, or by the Supreme, or by something very very purer form of, and people then get convicted to it. So you might have laws as many as you do, and believe me, there are so many excellent laws, but the structure, which is society, and the political and economic structure on the other side, if they both are hell-bent on supporting the caste system, you can make as many laws as you want, but that's not gonna change the fate of people.
What I'm hearing is that even though it might not be obvious from looking at the legislation, or nothing is really codified, there's like that underlying sentiment that's been driven by tradition and years of systematic discrimination. That's the problem, right? There's nothing that's actually codified that directly discriminates the untouchables. Is that correct?
You are spot on, and I think this is where the paradox of modernity comes to light, right? We don't have conventions that will encourage such form of discrimination. We don't have any laws that will promote isolation. But what happens is, even though we have, let's say in India, we have affirmative action or positive discrimination for people to get an advantage. But the people who are meant to implement are not the people who this policy is meant to, which means the ruling elite, the upper or the dominant caste. I call them oppressor caste because they're oppressors. And at times I call them criminal caste because they are criminals. So this oppressor criminal castes are the people who are in position of power. Now, even though you have a state level policy, the implementers are not your people. The implementers are your antagonists, historical antagonists of more than 25 generations. And so this kind of reminiscing historical fact gets rehashed and reintroduced time and again. And that's why I think, Stephen, although there is no law that discourages, we see everywhere in the world. Today we can't talk about easily about such kind of, or let's say, racism or any form. It's outlawed, but you still see it's been prevalent in each societies. And I think that has to do with the immaturity of our social consensus, and we just quickly jumped into forming a society before forming a consensus.